Hello everyone, welcome to Checkmates in Chess. I'm Grandmaster Priyadharshan Kannappan, and we have been talking about checkmates in different squares on the chessboard in all the previous episodes. And here we are going to be talking about how checkmates happen on G1 square of the chessboard. So once again, I'm back with a bunch of examples to kind of explain about this topic. So let's see the position that we have on the board. Looks like a pretty equal position. Both sides have king, queen, knight, three pawns on each side. But black has a win here. So, it's we can learn an important thing. Just because it's equal material and a very similar pawn structure doesn't mean that the game will obviously end in a draw. If there are tactical chances, obviously you can exploit it. Black, has a forced win in this position, and white had just played a terrible move. So I would suggest you to pause the video and try to find the winning move for black here. Like, it's like a two move variation and see how black wins in this position. So I hope you have paused and thought about the moves that you would play here. And the first move is, I think, kind of clear that you need to play a forcing move in this position. And black does that with queen c1 check. And here white has two options. White can go king e2 or white can go king g2. These are the two options. Let's see what happens if the king goes to g2. Here, black has a very nice check with this knight, and that is knight e1 check. And now the king and the queen are both attacked at the same time, and once the king moves, we pick up the queen and black wins the game. So instead of king g2, white is like, I can go king e2, which is the other exit square, right? But here you see a kind of a not so common, a very interesting checkmate that happens. And as you know, the topic of this video, I'm pretty sure you would have guessed the move by now. And it is knight g1, and it is a checkmate because the king unfortunately cannot go to any of these squares, because all the squares that I just highlighted in green for the king are controlled by the black pieces. For example, the knight is controlling the f3 square, the queen is controlling all the squares and e3. So the king basically is in a check and it can't go anywhere, which means it's a checkmate, right? So we checkmated the white king here in this game. So let's move on to the next example that we have here. So the position that we have here, it's white to play. So let me flip the board. And if you do look at this position, the king on g4, black's king is in a very funny position, I would say. It's a big question how the king actually landed up on g4. It's such a very unsafe square with so many white major pieces on the board, like the queen, two rooks, knight even. So you have different checks here. But definitely it's a bit confusing position, I would say, because you have a lot of different forcing moves. You can go knight e3 as a check, you can play queen d7 as a check, and so on. So if you're looking at forcing moves and if you're looking at checks, you may even count f3 as a check. So it's very tough to choose one among so many options, right? And I'm sure most of these moves are just winning. It's just that the way white played here, I think, is the precise way, and it's like like very attractive way to win this game. So white started with h3 check. The point of it being after king takes h3, it is rook h1 check, and here if king g4, then you pick up the knight on h5 with a check, and after king f5, just go back queen f7, king g4, and you can even play knight e3 check here or knight f6 check and so on, and basically white just wins the game. Instead, for rook h1 check, black is like, I'll go further into the white's territory, I'll go king g2. But this runs into a very simple checkmate with rook d g1, and here black cannot take king f2 because there's a queen on f7 defending the f2 pawn. So the king is basically in a check, and also it has no escape square. So it's a checkmate. So very nice, use of all the white's major pieces, joining together in the attack. So let's move on to the next example that I have here. So this is a black to play position, and if you look at material wise, black has an extra pawn and black has two bishops compared to two knights of white. Minor pieces are the same, but the question being the knight on e4 is being attacked for black, and if the knight moves away, then like white may just try to consolidate his position and so on and try to defend. But it's black to play, and black has a very nice forcing move here. So I would highly suggest you to pause the video, think of the possible options that you have, and this is kind of like a textbook checkmate kind of theme here. I'm pretty sure you would have seen this theme in many other positions in different settings, so it could be easy for you to find it out. And I hope you did see this move, queen c5 check. This is a very strong check because after this, if the king goes to h1 like the game, then you have knight f2 check, and then the king comes back to g1, and then you do a double check with knight h3, and the king again goes back to h1, and now you go queen g1, and it's a checkmate. So it's four consecutive moves of check, and then the game ends in a checkmate. So let's move on to the final example of this episode here. So the position that we have here is black to play, and it's like looks a bit complex position because both kings seem a bit weak, but unfortunately I think the white king is a bit more weaker than the black king because black has a rook and knight, some pieces more to defend his weak king compared to the white king, which on h1 has really no how to say, a pawn protection to, like, say, keep his king safe. Also, the point to note is that both white and black have a far advanced pawn, one on b2, one on e7. So if you give some few moves, then one of the pawns may end up promoting to a queen or any piece of its choice. So black plays a series of forcing moves and finishes the game immediately. So I would highly suggest you to pause the video and see if you can see it's like around a 4-5 move combination, and it ends in a checkmate. So if you can spot it, it would be fantastic. Okay, so I hope you have calculated after pausing the video. So let me go and reveal the solution here. So black starts with rook h7 check. So he's bringing the other major piece into the attack. The queen alone won't be enough to kind of deliver a checkmate. So the king obviously has to go hide. So the king goes to g1, and now the next piece joins the attack, and that is the knight on g5. Already we have the queen and rook in the attack, so it makes more sense to bring more pieces to attack. So knight f3 check. If you had gone knight h3 check, it wouldn't have made a big impact, but the king just goes f1, and then, like, knight h3, because of this the rook's view on h file is blocked. The rook isn't doing much. That is why knight f3 makes a lot more sense. And after king f1, this is where there's a key move for black, and I'm pretty sure you would have found it by now, and that is rook h1, sacrificing the rook. The point of it being bishop h1 is forced, and now this g1 square is accessible for this queen, and we go queen g1, and it's a checkmate. So I hope you learned a lot from these examples from today's episode, and please do subscribe to the channel, and if you do have any suggestions, put them on the comment box, and also press on the bell icon. Signing off is Grandmaster Priyadharshan. I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye.